Yes, friends, now we will see the object section from the library part on the left side. The object section is very enjoyable. Here, to create a new scene, I say File down, New, Scene. I say no, friends. My work has appeared. From here, I switch to the HDR section to make the scene a bit more impressive, because it looks more vibrant. By rotating this from the rotation, I take the light behind us. Friends, when we get to the HDR section, I will mention these a lot, because the HDR section is really an important part. Now, what do we have in the object section? In the object section, friends, these decals are very important. When you come to the home section, you have interior and many objects. Again, by dragging and dropping, you can place these objects here. For example, let's say a lamp. Here it comes, you call it. There are many lamp models here. You can also get models from outside. When you come to the import section, by pressing the plus tab of the import and saying, Open, friends, you can get many models here. This is our lesson model. We will take this. In the next section, it defines FPGIS, OBC, Cinema, 4D, Data Simit, and many files. Here. You can call any file you want here. You can bring it from 3DMX if you want, or from different formats, if you prefer. It recognizes the file perfectly, and it comes here, friends. Now, there's no need to address these one by one, because you will already bring and place them here. Here, in the Objects menu, under the City section, there are many objects related to exteriors. Friends. Again, as I said, when you move your object, here the object, without you releasing, with this mode, you can move it to any point you want. See? You can move it to any point you desire. Nice feature. You can leave it here as you wish. And again, commands like copying, duplicating, scaling, these also work, friends. I will come back. There are primitives, meaning there are ready-made objects we use here. Square, triangle, ramp, spire, and so on. If you want to use these, you can. They are ideal for testing. For example, a song like this comes out. See, you can use this. In the object section, there are particles. Among these, there is the newly added confetti, friends. The confetti has just arrived. For example, when you take something like this and place it here, you can use them in a fairground or a wedding exhibition area. Look, it pops the confetti like this. It knows, and it appears in the animation section. It says there are errors in some parts of the animation section. On the right side, you can determine what type these patterns will be. Look, do you see it like this? If you set it to thread shape, it will be in thread shape and heart shape. It's a continuous system, friends. They've done it quite nicely. These have just arrived. There is a fog section. Again, you can add fog from the fog section here. It's not visible right now. To see the fog, you'll need to darken this part from the ambiance menu. If we want to see the fog, let's do this. Let's do this part from here, friends. Look, as you can see, the fog has appeared directly. If some parts here are not visible, try to darken the atmosphere immediately. If you want the darkening feature, you can press the eye here and lower the sun significantly from the sun section. Friends, it's enough to come to this sunrise from the presets here, or in this way. Now, an important feature has come up here. Friends, there are decals in the object section. Decals are important to show that. Let's quickly move to a new scene. I will delete these from the HDR section here. Beep, friends. Let me close these by looking at them and remove this one. From here, I am writing Bex in a section. And from here, this, I took a meter box. I will scale it in this way. To enlarge it, subscribe. I rotated it in the equivalent section from this ambience part. Let the light come correctly. Now, friends, what was the purpose of this section here? Girls, normally, in V-Ray and other render engines, to create a dirty surface here, you need to find a dirty surface as a PNG. And you need to apply it onto the scene. It works best within Twinmotion, friends. This really... Now, for example, I came to the texture section. From the concrete section, for example, let me assign a plain concrete here. Let it be a slightly different concrete. More plain. Yes, let's imagine it as a concrete like this, friends. I could make it dirty from here as well. The dirtiness I create from here may not be very natural. At the same time, the topic of decals is a very, very efficient subject. Friends, especially on asphalt roads, we can use it on walls, everywhere. You go from the object menu. You came to the object menu, you entered the decal section. Look, there are many objects here. I am scrolling down. I want to do this from the dirty sections. Look now, for example, something like this. Look, I placed it here and I'm adjusting its opacity on the right immediately. In other words, I'm adjusting the level of dominance. There is a logic here like this. You know, I mentioned that logic at the beginning. When you drop an object from the left, your eyes should immediately go to the right, because the right side adjusts its size, its degree, the thickness, the opacity, the place where you adjust it, friends. Look, I dropped one here. Let me move on to the second one immediately. Look, let me add a crack. Look, the crack appeared. It became a crack directly and let me enlarge its size. Look, as you can see, bottom, depth. This C looks quite sufficient for now. Let's slightly reduce the number so it stays a bit more inside. It looks as if it cracked towards here. Look, a kind of pollution even, algae pollution. Let's reduce its opacity. So, friends, as you can see, then from above again a flow. Let's reduce its opacity a bit again. Let it stay more in the background. Let's give some more to this side again. Like this. Let me adjust this again with the move button, as you can see, like this. If I want, I can duplicate it and place it to the side, like this. Again, then what could it be? I mean, we already have many events. Using these, we can adjust the wall's dirtiness and fragmentation in various ways. Look, we have performed operations in different ways. So normally my face was like this, friends, and it turned into this face. Of course, this is a bit exaggerated, but it's something very commonly used in game models. You can also use it outdoors. Having everything perfect outdoors doesn't actually represent naturalness. In other words, having a slight dirtiness is one of the main summarized elements that allows us to achieve a natural and realistic appearance. Friends, that's why decluster is important. Use a decluster a lot. You will achieve great results. Look, there are patches here. As you can see, these are asphalt patches. Again, you can bring these to various places by offsetting them. As you can see, this is the process, friends. There are a lot of objects. There are a lot of materials. So, for example, you can use this in children's rooms, in playgrounds. There are graffiti. You can use different graffiti, colorful graffiti on the walls like this. So what else is there? Look, there's a different graffiti, a donut. On the ground. You can use something like this on city roads. As you can see, these are very diverse. The use of these varies according to the object you have created. Using a model, there is using this. Using this will not cause any lag in the scene. Because it's an image, friends, an image view. You can think of it as an image view that directly adheres to the object. Here are places for electric vehicles. Places for disabilities, object bus stops. Look, for example, how does it look here? It looks very thick and rough, doesn't it? Immediately, reduce the opacity like this. You can slightly reduce the base thickness. Content that looks like this, friends. As you can see, it's a very well-functioning system. Decals are like this, friends. Make sure to use them abundantly. On the roads, you can use sidewalks and pedestrian crossings like this. We saw the decals. The topic of water is not a very important issue, friends, but if you want to place a body of water, here you can adjust it with scale. Look, if you want to add a body of water, as if it's patched onto a part of a surface quickly, you can add it like this, friends. In this way, there are circular ones, and there are also castle-like ones. In the object section, we have doors. There are moving doors. In animation, there are animation styles that open when the door arrives. We have sounds. By adding sounds to a few places, for example, let's say people, you add the sound here. Let's say you add it here as well. Let's come and add it here, for example. Look. There is a distance feature here, friends. There is a volume feature and a distance feature. Look. There is a line around it. Do you see it? There is a huge line. The distance feature. It indicates that the sound will be there when you enter that circle. To you. And as you get closer, the sound increases, friends. Such an arm. With animation, you go to various places. When it arrives, those sounds here emerge. That's all for the object menu, friends. A really nice menu. A phone menu. We will come from the light section. I would like to say that the light section is more fun than all the others. See you in the next section to discuss the light section.